Hello everyone, it's Glenda and welcome back to Creative Grandma. Today's crochet tutorial is for the springtime pocket tissue holders. Now this was a special request from one of my subscribers who asked me to crochet up a little tissue holder. So for this project, we're just going to crochet one piece, a rectangle, fold it in the center, put an edging, and then add a little flower and 2 leaves. And then you're going to add a little bead right in the center of the flower to give it a nice, pretty accent. So these are not opened. I don't have the tissues coming out, but you would open this before you put the tissues in, and then you can pull them out of the center. So let me show you my 4 samples, and this is just mixing and matching the colors. Now for the leaves, you're going to use the same color of the green, but for the tissue holder, you can either make it two-tone, where I used pink and then white, or you could just do it all in pink and come out and make that match. It's all up to you of what you want to do. I just thought it was pretty doing that other color with that little bit of accent in the center. And then for your little flowers, you can choose whichever color you prefer. So this is the first one where I made the pink, yellow, and green. And then I made a white one. I added a little bit of yellow trim, and then I put the blue flowers and the green leaves. And then I made a yellow one with the white trim around the center with pink flowers. And then the last one I made is this blue one, which this is the one that we're making in the crochet tutorial today. So the yarn I used for my tissue covers was the Premier Cotton. It's a number 2 fine weight yarn. It's 52% cotton, 48% acrylic. It's 317 yards, 290 meters, 3.5 ounces, and 100 grams per ball. It's machine washable, and it's a pretty big size ball. You get quite a bit of yarn in this ball of yarn, so you can make quite a few tissue covers. And these are excellent because when you're doing a craft show, it just adds a lot of color and really gets it's eye-catching. It's what I call eye candy when you have all those colors and people see it and then they come over, and it's just nice for your craft shows or for gift giving. So you're going to need 1.5 to 1 ounce of the main color. So you have to figure out what color you want for the main color, and then you need 1.5 to 1 ounces for that main cover of the tissue cover. And then you're going to need 3 additional colors. You're going to need an accent color for your flowers and the opening around the tissue cover, and then you're going to need that leaf green for your leaves. So the leaf green was color number 2710 leaf green. So you're going to need a few yards, probably about 3 yards for the center opening, and then I'd say about 5 yards for your flowers and your leaves. So again, you need a total of 4 colors for each tissue cover. This one was pink, white, yellow, and green. So main color, 1.5 to 1 ounce of yarn, and then your accent colors about 3 yards for the center opening, and then about 5 yards for your leaves and your flowers. So you need to pick 4 colors for the tissue cover. And then you're going to need 2 1/4 inch in diameter little beads to put in the center of your flowers. You're also going to need a yarn needle. You're going to need a glue gun with a stick of glue in order to glue your beads into the center of the flower. You're also going to need a pocket-sized pack of Kleenex or tissues that fit inside your little cover. So 1 pack of tissue for each cover that you make. And then last but not least, you're going to need a crochet hook size G6 or 4 millimeter to make your tissue cover. So let me give you the stitch gauge. The stitch gauge for this pattern is 16 stitches and 15 rows equal 4 inches. So if you have that stitch gauge, then your little tissue cover should come out the same as mine. So let me just measure my tissue holder real quick. So when you measure the length, it's going to measure about 5 inches long. So when you measure across sideways, it's going to be about about 2 3/4 inches. So that's the size of our tissue cover. So grab your supplies, grab your hook, and let's get started. To begin, I already have my yarn attached to my hook and I just used a double knot. You can use whichever method you prefer. I'm also using a size G6 or 4mm hook, and we're going to begin and chain 22. Yarn over the hook, pull it through the loop, and that creates your first chain. The loop on your hook does not count as a chain. Yarn over, pull through, that's 2, 3, 4. Continue until you have a total of 22 chains. I'll be back and we'll get row 1 started. I have my chain with 22 chains, and now we're going to start row 1. For row 1, we're going to be working into the back bumps, this center loop of each chain, and we're going to work our stitches. So this is the front of your chain, and when you turn it, you're going to see a stitch running right through the middle of that chain. So let's begin. You're going to skip that first chain. You're going to work in the back bump of that second chain. So turn your work, find that back bump, that loop right in the center of that chain. Yarn over, pull through that stitch. You have 2 loops, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. You just made a single crochet. So now we're going to start our repeat. We're going to yarn over, you're going to insert into that next back bump of the next chain, work a double crochet, yarn over, pull through that back bump stitch. You have 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. You just done a double crochet. We're going to work a single crochet into the next bump, insert into that next back bump, work a single crochet, and that is the end of the repeat. So let's do it again. You're going to yarn over, insert into the back bump of that next chain, making sure you get under all that stitch, work a double crochet, find your next chain, insert into the back bump, work a single crochet. And again, when you look at your work, you'll see how it has that nice top stitch to your work. And again, that's going to be the center front when we get our tissue cover made. So let's do it one more time, and then you can continue on your own. You're going to yarn over, find your next chain, go into the back bump of that next chain, work a double crochet. Find your next chain, insert into the back loop, work a single crochet. And again, that is the end of the repeat. So go ahead and continue. You're going to work 1 double crochet into the back of the next chain, a single crochet into the back of the next chain, and you're going to repeat that to the end of the row. So go ahead and work your pattern across to the end of the row, and I'll meet you at the end of row 1. So row 1 is finished. Row 1 is our base row, and rows 2 and 3 will be our repeat rows. So let's go ahead and begin row 2. We're going to chain 1, and you're going to turn your work. You're going to skip that beginning chain 1. You're going to insert into that first stitch, and we're going under both of those top loops, work a single crochet. Insert into the next stitch, work a single crochet. Now we're going to start our repeat. Our repeat will be, we're going to double crochet into the next stitch and single crochet into the next stitch, and we're going to repeat that across to the last stitch. So let's begin. Yarn over, insert into the next stitch, work a double crochet. Insert into the next stitch, work a single crochet. And that is the end of the repeat. Let's do it again. Yarn over, insert into the next stitch, work a double crochet. Insert into the next stitch, work a single crochet. Again, that is the end of the repeat, so I'm just going to go ahead and work right across with you. We're going to repeat a double crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into the next, and we're going to repeat that over to the last stitch, and then we're going to stop right before that last stitch, and then I'll show you how to finish the row. So let's keep going. Double crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into the next, double crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into the next, double crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into the next, double crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into the next, and since we're almost over to the end, I'm just going to work this right with you. Double crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into the next, double crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into the next. We have 3 stitches to go, so we have one more repeat. Double crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into the next. So we're over to our last stitch, and we're going to end the row with a single crochet into that last stitch. Insert under both of those top 2 loops, work a single crochet. Row 2 is finished. So let's go ahead and start row 3. It's going to be worked in the same manner, only we're going to start with the single crochet and then jump right into our repeat. So let's begin. You're going to chain 1 and you're going to turn your work. You're going to skip that beginning chain 1, insert into that first stitch under both of those top 2 loops, work a single crochet. You're going to yarn over, insert into that next stitch, work a double crochet. Insert into that next stitch, which you can see it's a double crochet, you're going to work a single crochet. And that is the end of the repeat. Double crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into the next stitch, double crochet into the next, single crochet into the next stitch, and remember to go under both of the top 2 loops, yarn over, insert into the next stitch, work a double crochet, single crochet into the next stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, and I'm just going to work this row right across with you. Single crochet into the next stitch, double crochet into the next, single crochet into the next stitch, and again we're just repeating the pattern. Double crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into the next stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into the next stitch. We're almost to the end of our row. Double crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into the next stitch, and then we're going to end the row by working a double crochet into the next stitch and a single crochet into the end stitch. Yarn over, insert into that next stitch, work a double crochet. Insert into the last stitch, work a single crochet. And that is the end of row 3. So now for our tissue cover, you're going to repeat rows 2 and 3 a total of 10 more times, and then you're going to repeat row 2 again. So you're ending with row 2, and you need to have a total of 24 rows. So again, you're going to repeat rows 2 and 3 10 more times, and then you'll be at the end of row 23, and then you need to repeat row 2 again for a total of 24 rows. So go ahead and complete rows 2 and 3 until you have a total of 24 rows. You're ending with row 2, and I'll meet you at the end of row 24. I'm over at the end of row 24. I ended with row 2 of the repeat of the pattern, and your piece should measure 5 inches across, and then it should measure 6 inches long. So now we're getting ready to sew our tissue cover together, but first let me fasten off. Now when you fasten off, you want to leave about a 24-inch length for sewing, so a nice long length. Now when I fasten off, I chain 2. I pull up my hook, pull that yarn out, grab a hold of the yarn, pinch, pull down, and it creates a secure knot. So now I'm going to grab my yarn needle, and I'm just going to thread this through my needle. So I have my yarn needle threaded, and this is the end of row 24, so this is the wrong side of the work. So you want to flip your work over, and then your sewing length will be on the top right, and then where you did your foundation chain is going to be on the bottom left. So now what we want to do is we're going to fold this. You want to fold this top right to the center. So you can go ahead and fold this in half to get that center of your work, and then you're going to fold it down to that center. And then you're just going to bring the bottom up to that center point as well. You just want to make sure that both sides are the same and they're meeting in the center. So usually what I do is I'll take my yarn needle and I'll put it up against the center and mark it with my finger right here, and then I take it to the other side to make sure it's the same. Well, it's the same. So now I'm going to get ready and start sewing. So I'm going to just take my yarn needle and I'm going to get myself over to that first corner. So I just weave it through the top, just up and down through those stitches until you get over to that top corner. Now I keep my finger right to the center, so I keep that right in place. Now you may want to use a piece of yarn and put through there, or a safety pin or something to hold that in place. I just hold it with my fingers. We're going to start on the edge of our work, and we're just coming right through the top of these stitches. So I'm going right into that corner. So let's keep on sewing. You're just going to go into the top edge of both sides. You're going from the back and then front to the front, and we're just whip stitching. And see how I pull, it kind of gathers that a little. You want to do that just so it has those nice snug corners and they don't stick out and look awkward. So again, I'm just going to go right into the top stitches, back to front, and we're just whip stitching this together. Now when you get to the center, you want to make sure, I like to do a double stitch. When I get to that center, I'll do another stitch in that same stitch I just worked. So when I'm over to the center, I do this stitch twice, and then I make sure this is nice and snug. And then I go through this stitch twice. I'll come in through once. And then I'm going through it again, because this gets a lot of use when you're putting the tissue holder in and out. So I like to double my stitches right where it really joins together here. Now, since that's all secured, I don't have to worry about holding it. And we're just going to keep stitching across the top. And again, you cannot hurt this by pulling tight. I pull this tight, and I want those stitches to be nice and tight, and pull these corners together so they're not square. I'm over at my corner, so let me try to get in here in this last stitch. And then I like to go through the end another time. So I like to make sure that corner is nice and secure. So this side I pulled a little more. This side's a little square, so I'm going to try to pull this corner over. So I'm just going to take my hook in here, and then I'm going to try to pull it over, weave in through the top, and you're going right over to the center. We need to get back over to that center point. And then I'm just going to tug that corner over and try to round it out a little bit more. So now we're over to the center of our work, and now we're going to whip stitch into the first 5 stitches. So only go 5 stitches. You're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you're matching it up with the 5 stitches on this side. So let's begin. Insert into that first stitch, match it up to the stitch on the other side. Insert into the next stitch and grab both loops. You'll see it's bent down under. Grab that stitch, match it up to the one on the other side. That's 2. 3. 4. And 5. And when you get to the 5th stitch, you're going to go through that stitch again. I go through it 2 more times. Insert into that same stitch, match it up to the stitch you just went through. That's 2, and then do it 1 more time. You really want to make that nice and secure. And then I usually grab 1 strand of yarn under one of the pieces, pull up a loop, and then take my needle through that loop, and it helps create a knot. Pull it tight, and then I weave in through the stitches. Just grab some of those stitches. I'm going down through the stitches, pull that through, and then I just bring it back through a few more. And then you're just going to trim your end, and then just trim. We're on the wrong side. So our one end is sewed together, and we sewed up 5 stitches. So now you're going to take your yarn, and you're going to pull off about a 24-inch piece of yarn. Clip that yarn, weave your end in through your yarn needle. So now you're going to do the same thing on this side. You're going to make sure that's centered, and then you're going to come over to the corner, and you're going to attach your yarn right into that corner, and I just come up and I tie a knot. And once you get your knot tied on, again, we'll weave those ends in on this wrong side of our work. You're just going to hold that together, sew across the end, and then weave yourself back into the center, and then whip stitch, matching the first 5 stitches towards the center. If you need help, just click back on the video and repeat from where we started, sewing the side together, and do it to this opposite side. I'm going to sew my end together, and then I'll be back and meet you when I get my side sewed together. So I sewed my second side, so this is on the wrong side. So now we're going to turn it right sides out. So just take your work and turn it so right sides are facing out, and just use your fingers and poke those corners. So now it's right sides out, and you can see the center has those nice stitch tops because you worked in the back bump both sides. You can see the top loops of those stitches. So now I'm going to join my yarn. Now I'm using yellow as my trim, so I attached my yarn with the double knot on my hook, and you can use whichever method you prefer to join your yarn. So here is your tissue holder, and I'm just going down into this bottom stitch. It's the first stitch, so look for the first stitch. When you see that opening, just come down here to that first stitch, and then I'm going to join my yarn. So I'm just going to yarn over, pull through that stitch, and pull through the loop on my hook, and that makes a nice secure joining of your yarn. So now I'm just going to hold this piece of yarn up against the top of my work and work my stitches right over it. I'm going to chain one, insert back into that same stitch, work a single crochet. Insert into the next stitch, and again you're going under both those top loops, and then I have my hook underneath that starting piece of yarn, work a single crochet. Insert into the next stitch, work a single crochet. And again we're working one single crochet in each stitch over to that next joining seam. And I'm working my stitches right over that end. Now I think I'm just going to hold that down. It keeps getting in my way. So continue working one single crochet in each stitch, and we're going to work across this side of the opening. And you can use a different color. You don't have to use yellow. You can use whichever colors you prefer. So now let's look and see where we are. I see I'm over at the point, but I have one more stitch. So when you look at your work, let me see if I can turn this so you can see it. You can see we have one more stitch. So insert into that stitch right up against that joining seam, work a single crochet. And then when you get to the joining seam, you're going to look and see where your very next stitch is. Right here it is. You can see those top two loops. So the one side is going to be a little bit tighter to work than the other because that was the bottom of the foundation chain when you joined your chain. Insert into that stitch, work a single crochet. And then again we're going to work one single crochet in each stitch across, and this side is a lot tighter than the other side, so just get your hook in there, work a single crochet. Insert into the next stitch, make sure you go under both of those top two loops, work a single crochet. Insert into the next stitch, make sure you're getting under both those top two loops, work a single crochet. And we're just going to work in each stitch around to that next joining seam. So we have a few stitches to go. Just keep watching your work and you'll know when you get to that joining seam. Work a single crochet, insert into the next stitch. Again, this side is just a little bit tighter than the other side, so you just have to play with getting that hook underneath those top two loops. We have one stitch to go, so when you're looking at your work, we're over to this joining seam, so we have this one last stitch, and you can tell because you see the top two loops of that stitch. Insert into that last stitch, going under the top two loops, work a single crochet. So now when you look at your work, you're going to see you worked a single crochet into that last stitch, and then we're just going to skip this joining part and we're going to join with the slip stitch into the top of that beginning single crochet. insert under the top 2 loops, yarn over and pull through. And pull through the loop on your hook. I'm going to go ahead and fasten off, and again I leave a little bit longer length because I'm using that yarn needle, and we're going to weave this end in on the back side or the wrong side of the work. So just grab your yarn needle, thread it through the eye of the needle, and then you're just going to take it and you're going to pull it on the inside, and you're just going to weave it underneath those yellow stitches. And I like to go through quite a few stitches, so I'm going to go through 2, 4, 6, 8, about 10 stitches. And I'm right over here where that piece of yarn is, so I'm going to trim that off because it's in my way. And then to make it nice and secure, I'm just going to skip one strand of thread and then come back through and bring it back through about 6 or 8 stitches. And then I'm going right through the center of this V and ending it off right into the center of those stitches. And it just helps make a little bit more secure, and so it doesn't come out. Trim your end and then straighten up your tissue holder. Now when I finish this, I put my tissue pack in it now, and then when I get my flower and my petals done, it makes it easier to sew on because the plastic from the tissue holder helps so your needle doesn't go down into the bottom. So let me grab a pack of tissues, and we're just going to take our tissue holder, open it up. You're going to stick this right into there and then push it down. And then you're just going to bend this. Now, if you're doing this for getting it ready to use, then you're going to open this up and pull the tissues out. So make sure you're putting it in the right side and open it up, pull a couple tissues up, or get it ready so you know the tissue is there, and you can, let me pull this off of here. I'm just going to trim it. Now, if you're selling these at a flea market or a craft show, I don't open them. I leave them sealed shut. But if you're using them and you want to get this ready, then just insert it, open it up, insert it. And then again, I bend it down, stick it in there, and then you just kind of like squish it around till it looks nice. And then your tissue can come out. So that's what it looks like. And when you pull, when you're sewing this together and you're pulling those corners, it helps make them a little bit more round, and it makes it look really nice. So when you get it all sewed together and insert the tissues, then you have this opening that you can pull those tissues out through the center. So now you can leave it like this, or if you prefer to add the accents, grab whatever color you want to use for your flower, because I'm going to be making my flowers next. So we're going to be making 2 flowers, so I'll show you how to make 1 flower, and then you can go ahead and make your second flower. So then I'm going to show you how to make your little leaves, and then we'll be placing our leaves on our tissue holder here at each side, and we'll be sewing the leaves on, and then we'll be putting our flower in the center, and then we'll be putting a little bead right in the center of the flower to give it a decorative look. So again, you can make it plain and keep it plain, or you can add the little flower for a really pretty accent. So grab whatever color you want to use for your flower, grab your hook. We're using the same size hook. We're using a size G6 or 4 millimeter, and let's get our flower started. I have my yarn attached to my hook, and I just used a double knot. Now I'm using white for my flower, and for this flower we're going to be working all our stitches into the same chain. So we're going to begin, and we're going to chain 2. Yarn over, pull through, that's your first chain. yarn over, and pull through. So we're going to be working all of our stitches into the second chain from hook. So it might get a little tight, so just remember every stitch you make is going into the second chain from hook. So now we're going to begin, and we're going to work 2 half double crochet into the second chain from hook. Yarn over, skip the first chain, insert into that second chain, work a half double crochet, yarn over, pull through that chain. You have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. You made your first half double crochet. You're going to yarn over, insert back into that same chain, work your second half double crochet. You're going to chain 1, and now we're going to slip stitch into this same chain. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull through that chain, and pull through the loop on your hook. You just made your first petal. We're going to make 5 petals. So now we're getting ready to start the repeat, and each repeat forms a petal. So we're going to do the repeat 4 times. You're going to chain 1, yarn over, insert into that same chain that you worked all your other stitches, and you're going to work 2 half double crochet. 1, yarn over, insert back into that same chain, work your second half double crochet. You're going to chain 1, insert back into that same chain, and slip stitch. You just made your second petal. Now what I do is I keep grabbing this. It's a little hard because this is really tiny, and just keep pulling those stitches back the best you can to try to make room for all those other petals. So your petal is made, and now we're going to do it again for our third petal. You're going to chain 1, yarn over, insert back into that same chain right into the center chain where all your stitches are worked, work 2 double crochet. 1 and 2. You're going to chain 1, and then I usually at this point grab those stitches and pull them back, and then insert back into that same center where all the stitches are worked and slip stitch. Your third petal is made. So again, you need to keep pulling those stitches back. We're really going to jam them in there to get those 5 petals. So let's do it again and make our fourth petal. You're going to chain 1, yarn over, insert back into the center of that flower, work 2 half double crochet. 1 and 2. Chain 1, grab your stitches, and again it's easier to pull them back after you do that chain 1, and then insert into the center of the flower and slip stitch. So we have 4 petals made, and we need to do 1 more petal. So again, I pull those stitches back, trying to make room. I'm going to chain 1, yarn over, insert into the center of the flower, work 2 half double crochet. 1 and 2. Chain 1, grab those stitches, pull them back, and then insert into the center of the flower and slip stitch. So our 5th petal is made, so now I'm getting ready to fasten off. So when you fasten off, make sure you leave a long enough sewing length. Now for this one, I just yarn over and pull through. I do not chain 2, and then I just pull that tight. And then you can play around with it and get your petals nice and even around. Now when you have an opening like this, you can take this small piece of yarn where you started your chain, and you just want to pull that, and then it usually closes that inner circle up nice and tight. So just pull that till it's tight, and then weave in your yarn end around the back side of your flower, but leave your sewing length for sewing that flower on. Go ahead and weave in this end, and then you're going to need to make one more flower. So you can just click back on the video, make one more flower, so you have a total of 2 flowers, and then I'll be back and we'll get our leaf started. I'm back. I have my 2 flowers made. So here are my 2 flowers, and now we're getting ready to make our leaf. So I'm going to set them aside. I already have my green attached, and I just attached my yarn with the double knot. You can use whichever method you prefer. I'm still using the size G6 4mm hook, and we're going to begin with the chain 4. Yarn over, pull through the loop on your hook. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're going to work a slip stitch into this second chain from hook. So you're going to skip the first chain, insert into the second chain, and slip stitch. Yarn over, pull through that chain, and pull through the loop on your hook. You're going to insert into the next chain, work a single crochet. Yarn over, pull through. You have 2 loops, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. So now we're going to work 5 double crochet into this next chain, and when we make the leaf, we're going across the top of the chain and then coming back around the bottom of the chain. So yarn over, insert into your last chain, work a half double crochet. That's 1. Yarn over, insert into that same chain, work your second half double crochet, yarn over, insert into that same chain, work your third half double crochet, and again you can see how it's taking us right around our work. Yarn over, insert back into that same last chain, work a 4th half double crochet. So now I'm going to take this piece of yarn where I started my chain, hold it right up against my work, and I'm going to be working over that piece of yarn. Yarn over, insert back into that same last stitch, work your 5th half double crochet. And you can see how it just took us right around the bottom of our leaf. Now we're going to single crochet into this next chain, insert into that next chain, work a single crochet. Now you're going to slip stitch into this next chain, insert into that next chain, and slip stitch. So now we're getting ready to join our work. So we're going to come up here to this top loop of that first stitch in the beginning of the round. Insert your hook under the top loop. Make sure you get all strands of that stitch, and slip stitch. Yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. And you can see how it forms a tip to our leaf. And then I'm just going to fasten off. Make sure you leave a long enough sewing length, and then just yarn over, pull through that loop, and pull your yarn out, and then just pull tight. And that makes a secure knot. So our leaf is finished. So now what you want to do is click back on the video and repeat until you have a total of 4 little leaves, and I'll be back and we'll start sewing our leaves and our flowers onto our tissue cover. So I have my 4 leaves done, and we have our 2 flowers. So now what we're going to do is position our leaves onto our tissue holder. So you want the bottom rounded part up towards this end of the opening, but you want the leaf to point towards the bottom corner. So I'm going to lay it out, but then I'm going to take it back off to sew it on. So first you want to lay your leaves so the point is going towards the corner. So this is what it looks like. Keep the rounded parts up towards the center opening, and then the points towards the corners. So you have to make sure that when you put your leaves, before you sew them on, that you have enough room that when you put your flower on, it covers the ends of the leaves. So if you have them too far apart, you don't want it like that. You have to make sure that they're close enough right up to the center, pointing towards the corners, that when you place your flower on, it covers up the ends of the leaves. It just gives a nicer look to have the ends of that leaf covered up. So again, place the bottom curved part of your leaf up towards that opening. Keep them to where they're close enough together, but the points are facing the corners, and then make sure that your flower will fit over top the ends of those leaves. So now I'm going to take these two pieces off. I have my yarn needle attached to my sewing length, so I have to turn this in order to sew it, but I'm going to place it. Make sure that this leaf is almost touching here. You can have like maybe one stitch from there. The round part is towards the center and the point is towards the corner. So I have to keep turning it. I hope you can see what I'm doing. So I keep my finger on the leaf, and then I just come up through the point. So the yarn is at the top, and I just go like a stitch underneath that point. Don't come out here too far. Stay right about the tip. Go underneath and then back up through. So what I'm doing is I'm just coming up underneath that top point, and I'm securing my point. So then I'm going to go back down through across the top of the point, and then I'm going to come up in the next opening, and I'm coming right up through the center of the leaf. Pull that tight, make it nice and secure, and then I'm going back down, and I'm only going over to above that stitch. And the nice thing is when you have your tissues here, you're not going in the underneath piece. You're staying right here, and it really helps to sew it on. So put your tissues in before you start sewing. So I'm coming up, I come up here. Here's a stitch. I'm going back down across and underneath, and then I'm coming back up through the next hole. And you can see those holes right through the center of your work. And then I just pull that, and you can see how it makes that nice straight stitch. And then I pull tight and make sure that this is curved so the point is towards the corner, and keep your finger on it so it's angled. You want it angled. So I need to push that over a little bit, put my finger there, and then I'm going to go back down through. I'm going back towards the corner, and then I'm coming back up through on the other side of my thread. And again, I pull it tight, and you can see how those stitches are coming right up through the center of my leaf. And then I'm just going to finish and go back down through, and then I'm going to come up here right underneath the top of that stitch. And then I'm just going to grab it right here in this end stitch or over here and pull that over. Come back up through, pull tight, and then I'm just going to come over here on the base of that, grab like maybe one stitch, pull and make a loop, and then I take my yarn through that loop, pull tight, and this helps create a knot. And then what I do is I take my hook underneath the leaf on the wrong side, and I just take my yarn needle down through those stitches of that leaf. Just grab a few stitches, pull through, and then turn, and then come back through a few more stitches. And then I'm just going to clip off, and that's how I sew my leaves on, and then you can just play around with your fingers. So I'm going to go ahead and sew my other 4 leaves on. Again, here's the placement. You want to put that leaf right so that round part is up towards the center, and then point that leaf towards the corner. So go ahead and sew your 2 leaves on this side, and then repeat to the opposite side, and then I'll come back and we'll put our flowers on. So we have our 4 leaves, and again the round part is facing the center opening, and then the points are facing each corner. So once you get your 4 leaves sewed on, then you're going to sew your flower on. So you're just going to take your flower and you're going to place it right over the ends of these 2 leaves, making sure it overlaps. So try to bring your flower so it's right into the center of those leaves, but try to make sure you do not sew into any part of this opening, because this needs to be able to stretch to get your little hankies in there. So go ahead and sew your flowers on. I'm going to sew my flower here and on this end, and then I'll come back and we'll hot glue our little bead into the center, and then our tissue holder will be finished. So my flowers are sewed on, and now I have my little beads. These are just regular beads. They have holes in each end. So when you try to glue these on, try to make sure the holes are on the side and not on the top, because you're just going to glue it right in the center. So let me grab my glue gun. I'm going to place a small dab of glue right into the center of the flower. And then over on this flower, my cord won't reach, so I have to spin this around. So my fingernails are really long, so I have to try to get this so they're sideways. And whoops, there we go. Put it in there right in the center. Swing it around. Put your other little bead right into the center. That one's showing on top, just what I didn't want to happen. So then I try to grab some of that glue, and then I press down and make sure they're really tight in there and the glue dries. And then our tissue holder is finished. So this is what it looks like. And if your flower and you find that maybe your flower's over here and you see a little bit of that leaf, then you can pull this flower over and just use your glue gun and just use a tiny bit of glue and just glue this over on top if it's not covering both ends. So here are the 4 tissue holders that I made. So very simple. Let me show you again. You just take your center, fold it up, pull your tissues out, and then you can open your tissues. You put it back in, you just put it in sideways, shove it down, and then you just kind of bend this down and put it back in your tissue holder. It's just a really cute, adorable way of making some really nice decorative tissue holders. So those are our crochet tissue holders. I hope you enjoyed today's crochet tutorial. So remember, the PDF pattern is available on our website, creativegrandma.net, and I'll also have a link in the description box underneath this video. So until next time, stay inspired and happy crocheting.